Good morning, Britain. Tackling the epidemic of teenage vaping. Rogue vaping shops and online sellers will be banned from offering children free vapes as 2 out of 5 teenagers admit to trying e-cigarettes.
Because it looks like they're targeted at kids, which is ridiculous, right? I don't want my kids to be, seduced by any of these things.
The government is today preparing to defy demands to hand over Boris Johnson's diaries and WhatsApp messages to the COVID inquiry. Downing Street has been given a deadline of 4 o'clock this afternoon to hand over all documents.
Well, the Cabinet Office says it will not hand over unambiguously irrelevant material. It looks like there could be a legal showdown before the public inquiry into the COVID response has even begun.
Is there hope on the horizon? Food inflation shows a slight fall, although prices are still rising at near record rates. We'll be finding out what it means for you.
Twiggy doesn't like it, nor does Goldie Hawn. Neither of them want to be called grandma. So how about Mimi, Glamma, Boo, Kitty, Abba, or even Gaga? Let us know if you think it's time to get rid of grandma. Definitely not, I think.
And from grandmothers to Richard Osman's mum. How did she inspire his books? Why does she read them all first? And why does he want her to star in a Hollywood movie? Richard will be here to reveal all this morning.
Another day of warm sunshine. In fact, it could be the warmest day of the year so far. The outlook turns a little cloudier. I'll have all details. That's some more coming up on Good Morning Britain.
Tuesday, 30th of May, 2023. Live from Television Centre in London. This is Good Morning Britain with Charlotte Hawkins and Ed Balls.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to the programme. It's just gone 6 o'clock. Now, usually when we work together, Ed, we end up talking about baking, don't we?
We do.
In some form
Your
or another.
cupcakes are kind of
Well, it's your
very
recipe, and we decided that we'd do a little sort of bake-off challenge, didn't we? That you would bring some baking in one day, I would bring some baking in the next day.
My daughter's been off travelling, came back the weekend, and she said, I want lasagna and banana bread. And I thought, if I'm going to make one for her, make one for you.
I like
and all the
it.
crew as well. So
Unveiling.
This is what I cooked yesterday.
The Ed Balls banana bread.
Banana cake. Get that.
That first slice, there we go. Take a look at that. I'm looking forward to trying this one. So tomorrow I'll be bringing some cupcakes in. But is your recipe the double cream sponge recipe? Thanks so much.
Is there a slice for me, Ed?
There is. I'm not sure how I get it to you.
Maybe winging its way over to you.
I'll come and collect it.
If I wang it.
Don't throw it.
Get that.
There we go. Come on, Sean.
What I need to know, though, is... I think... Are you going to bring stuff in tomorrow?
I will. I'll bring cupcakes in
I
tomorrow.
think we need to have a kind of vote across the floor, the whole team, who makes the best cake.
Uh-oh.
Is that OK? Everybody happy with that?
All right, I'll pay you all later.
Can I say I'm not going to bring a cake in tomorrow?
You can try mine. Don't you worry, Sean. We'll get you covered. It's really lovely. And it's really good for breakfast, actually. Healthy with the bananas.
How do you find the crumb?
Moist. I like the crumb. It's got nice chunks of banana in there.
It's quite chunky, the banana.
It's good, yeah. I like the fact you've got lots of
made
banana
with
in there.
spelt flour.
And also, the banana sits evenly throughout the bake.
Thank you.
Not just dropped to the bottom. There we
On
go.
Bake Off, on Sport Relief Bake Off, Paul Hollywood said to me, why spelt flour? I said, because it was in the recipe. And he looked at me like, what? Really?
I think that's a good reason as any, isn't
Move
it?
on, is what he said.
Well, listen, thank you very much.
Good.
More to come tomorrow, anyway, from the baking. But we've got to talk about our main news this morning because the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak's launching a government crackdown on vape marketing. It's to stop what he calls the unacceptable targeting of children and young people. Ministers have pledged to close a loophole that allows rogue retailers to dish out free samples of vapes to children in England.
Comes days after the Prime Minister expressed concern about his own daughters potentially being targeted by vape marketing. During an interview last week on ITV, Liz Summers has this report.
No more free vapes for kids. That's what the government is calling for under new plans. The Prime Minister highlighted his concerns about e-cigarettes on This Morning just a few days ago.
Looks like they're targeted at kids, which is ridiculous, right? I don't want my kids to be, seduced by any of these things.
The government plans to close a loophole that allows retailers to give free samples of vapes to children in England. Add lessons about the health risks of vaping to relationships, sex and health education classes in schools. And make it easier for trading standards to issue fines to shops selling vapes to under 18s.
Kids like, I don't know, 8 to 12 have got them and walking around them. It's just not right.
The colours, the flavours, all these things will appeal to a younger age group.
Selling vapes to under 18s is illegal, but the Children and Families Act doesn't prohibit the free distribution of nicotine products. The Independent British Vape Trade Association believes the loophole allowing free samples to be distributed, regardless of consumer age, is a gap that no self-respecting business should ever have considered exploiting. But clearly rogue firms do exist, and for more and more children, a free sample is a gateway to addiction. Liz Summers, Good Morning Britain.
Well, with more on this, we can talk to Dr. Amir now. Good morning to you, Dr. Amir. I mean, I'm still staggered by the fact that they're able to give out free samples. I mean, vaping was seen as a way, wasn't it, to help people stop smoking tobacco. What kind of risk does it pose to children's health?
Morning, Charlotte. Yeah, so vaping is still considered to be less harmful than smoking cigarettes because, as you say, they don't contain tobacco or tar, but that doesn't mean they're safe. The potential long-term effects, harms of vaping are still unclear, and that's where the potential harms to children lie. What we do know is that people and children who vape are much more likely to suffer from chronic lung diseases like emphysema and bronchitis than those who don't vape. We know that vapes do contain some potential carcinogens, chemicals that cause cancer, like acetaldehyde and formaldehyde. And what we also know is that people who vape and children who vape do less well in exercise tests than those who don't. So children should absolutely not be vaping. Anyone who hasn't smoked a cigarette shouldn't be vaping. It's just a short-term bridge to help people stop smoking cigarettes, and then vaping themselves should be stopped as well.
OK, Dr. Amir, thanks very much. That is our top story this morning. We'll be discussing it further with Andrew Pearce and Kevin Maguire. But first, here's Sean with the rest of the day's news. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Charlotte. Thank you very much indeed. Good morning to you. The government has only hours left to hand over diaries, notebooks and hundreds of WhatsApp messages sent at the height of the pandemic between former Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his ministers, including the then Chancellor Rishi Sunak, ex-PM Liz Truss and shamed former Health Secretary Matt Hancock. Now, the chair of the COVID inquiry is demanding they are all handed over by 4 p.m. without any changes. But ministers are said to be ready to refuse and are prepared to fight a bitter legal battle to keep some of the exchanges secret. Well, our chief correspondent, Richard Gaisford, is at Downing Street for us. Richard, I wonder if they've got something to hide. Do we know why they seem reluctant to share the messages?
Well, cynics and students of recent political history may well wonder what is in these messages to make the Cabinet Office so defensive of them. As you've mentioned, Sean, it would certainly include communications between Boris Johnson and his top team, and that would include Rishi Sunak, who was Chancellor at the time of the COVID pandemic. What we have is the Cabinet Office saying that they will not unambiguously hand over irrelevant material to them. They want to redact these messages, these diary entries, only include what they think is relevant. But that is not what Lady Hallett, who is the chair of this public inquiry, wants. She was a former senior judge, someone who was put in charge by Boris Johnson of what he wanted to be a forensic inquiry, perhaps too forensic now for Mr. Johnson's own liking. The Cabinet Office and the government saying in a statement that we're fully committed to our obligations to the COVID-19 inquiry. As such, extensive time and effort has gone into assisting the inquiry fulsomely over the last 11 months. We will continue to provide all relevant material to the inquiry in line with the law ahead of proceedings getting underway. Well, the point of today's deadline at 4 o'clock is that in 2 weeks' time, these public evidence hearings start. Lady Hallett wanted this information in place before then, and it looks like there's going to be a big legal fight over it.
One possibility is the government will go to court and challenge the breadth of Lady Hallett's ruling. Another possibility is the government will do nothing, and perhaps tomorrow Lady Hallett will go to court and tell the High Court that the government has not complied with her order and therefore they should begin enforcement action. A minister, an official might be found in contempt of court. Either way, I don't think it's going to end here.
It certainly doesn't look good. The Lib Dems saying that by not handing over this information, the government is making a mockery of the COVID-19 inquiry, Sean.
Richard, thanks very much indeed. Now, reports from Russia claim that there has been a drone attack on Moscow overnight. It follows the alleged attack on the Kremlin earlier this month. Moscow's mayor is quoted as saying several drones were shot down on their approach to the capital, causing minor damage and no serious injuries. The attack earlier this month was dismissed by Ukraine and the US as a fake. Foreign Secretary James Cleverly will hold talks with allies in Estonia later before visiting the Royal Navy ship HMS Albion in the Baltic. It comes ahead of NATO's meeting tomorrow, where Russia's invasion of Ukraine will be high on the agenda. Cleverly is expected to push for Sweden to join NATO ahead of a full summit in July. Rebel fighters and government forces have agreed to extend the fragile ceasefire in Sudan. Street battles had broken out before the makeshift truce was due to run out last night, with gunshots and artillery fire held in Khartoum. But a last-ditch deal was reached. More than 2,000 UK nationals were evacuated during the initial ceasefire. Well, food prices are soaring by 15.4% a year. That's according to the latest survey from the British Retail Consortium. They found that the cost of kitchen basics such as tins and pasta was now rising even more quickly. But there was a glimmer of hope, with prices for fresh foods still rising but not shooting up quite as quickly as before. Well, Lorna Shaddock joins us now from South London. Good morning to you, Lorna. So we need to be clear here. Inflation would need to go into negative figures for food prices to drop. But is there hope that the huge jump in prices could soon begin to ease and make things more manageable for people?
Well, Sean, that certainly is the hope here at the Peckham Pantry. This is a community food shop, and the idea is that you pay £4.50, and for that you can get up to £30 worth of food items from the shelves here. And demand has been soaring in recent months, even as the supermarket prices have also been soaring. And that's as people are trying to get round that rising cost of living by coming to places like this. And as you say, it is the cost of larder staples, things like coffee and chocolate and tins going up, that is really keeping those average prices stubbornly high. And just to illustrate that, we've put together this basket of the kind of things that you might normally get in your weekly shop. So things like fruit, vegetables, tins, some meat down there as well. Now, a year ago, all of this would have set you back around £20, but now it sets you back £23, and that is why people are still finding things so hard. And Chris, you run the Peckham Pantry here. You've seen demand really going up, but you've also faced difficulty in terms of the supplies coming in through the door, haven't you?
We have. We've seen a drop in donations coming through, a drop in the supply of food. Previously, we would have about 3 to 4 months' supply for Southwark Food Bank in our warehouse, and now we're seeing about 6 weeks at the most, and some items are virtually out.
And that is all linked, of course, to that inflation and those stubbornly high prices on the shelves, isn't it? And people are telling us that if they don't have access to somewhere like this or to a food bank, they are having to find other ways to make do.
I'm looking on the clearance section on every supermarket I have to go by. I cut down on little treats.
Using more like rice and staple foods like that to ensure that we can make longer meals that last longer.
Probably getting more things in bulk when I can to save a little bit, but more so just taking the hit and hoping that something gets better over time.
Well, Sean, those figures from the British Retail Consortium do show the second highest annual increase that they have ever recorded. So prices still rising, just not quite as fast as before. But customers and organisers here will be hoping that they have reached their peak now.
Yes, let's hope so. Lorna, thank you very much indeed. Now, the RSPCA has told Good Morning Britain that the number of dogs being abandoned has doubled since last year. Animal welfare charities say unscrupulous breeders are dumping puppies from breeds such as cockapoos to cavapoos, which were selling for around £1,300 a puppy during lockdown, but which no one seems to want anymore. Well, Jonathan Swain is at the Many Tears Rescue Centre in South Wales. Jonathan, I see you found a friend there. How big a problem is this?
Morning, Sean. Well, I want to introduce you to my new friend. Well, let me introduce you, but he doesn't actually have a name because he hasn't actually been in a domestic situation. It hasn't actually been in a home. He was bred by a local breeder around here, but then surplus to requirements because since COVID and lockdown, nobody wants his dogs as much as they did before. It's not just my new friend down here. This wonderful sort of charity here takes in around 3,500 dogs every year. The dogs you're looking at now were actually rescued only last week. They're a batch of 40. Well, let's talk to Sylvia here. Sylvia, you've done an amazing job, haven't you, recently? And this situation is just getting worse, isn't it? Because of lockdown, people don't want dogs anymore. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. There were so many dogs sold over lockdown and everyone had a dog, literally everyone. And then they've gone back to work. They've not working from home. The cost of living's so high. I can't tell you how many excuses there are to not want a dog. And, of course, the breeders didn't know when to stop breeding so many, because it's supply and demand, and these are all surplus puppies that haven't been sold and aren't needed anymore. And thankfully, these ones are given to us. There are some that have been put out on the street, some put in a park locally. I know that every rescue in the country is struggling. It's a big burden for us all and a real worry, because when we're on the phone and having to turn dogs down because we're too full, they often have to be put to sleep, and it breaks my heart to have to say no to anyone.
It's heartbreaking. We did an amazing job here at the Many Tears Animal Rescue Centre. Let's put into some context, shall we? Because we've spoken to the RSPCA as well, who've told us in the first 4 months of last year, the RSPCA took in 700 dogs. The same period this year, it was actually 1,200 dogs. That's a 71% rise at the same time that rehoming has fallen by 8%. Sylvia was saying that she thinks rehoming has fallen by much more than that. So you can see that, look, all these dogs do need a home. The Many Tears Animal Rescue Centre say don't call them, but do get in touch with their website. There are some hundreds of dogs here just like this. This one for me, well, I don't know, he might be coming home with me, Sean, you never know.
Oh, it certainly should. You had one jumping up there below. I think he wants to come with you as well. You had one, yeah. Lots of friends. There he is, jumping up. Never worked with animals. Oh, so cute.
This one.
Jonathan, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Also this morning, in football, Sheffield Wednesday boss Darren Moore says his side's win over Barnsley in the League One playoff final proves the impossible can be achieved. Josh Winder scored in the last seconds of extra time to send Wednesday up to the Championship. The Owls, you remember, reached the final despite losing 4-0 to Peterborough in the first leg of their semi-final. No team had ever overcome more than a 2-goal deficit before. And I love this story. Hundreds of people from around the world took part in the annual cheese rolling event where competitors chased a £7 double Gloucester cheese wheel down the almost vertical Cooper's Hill. The world-famous event went ahead despite safety fears. Matt Croller from Manchester won the first race. The women's race was won by Delaney Irving from Canada despite being knocked unconscious.
Well, I decided yesterday that I would do the race, and then I started running and I just remember hitting my head, and now I have the cheese. So I kind of blacked out for most of it.
I just love that.
Imagine that.
So she was unconscious and she woke up a winner.
Yeah.
I want to start the campaign to make that an Olympic sport. That's just brilliant, isn't it?
It is one of those amazing eccentricities, isn't it? Cheese rolling. Who would have thought it?
Only in
cheese
Britain.
Down a hill. And especially if you wake up with a cheese, realising that you've won and you can't remember anything about it because of an injury sustained. I love this quote as well from the winner, because they said, how did he prepare for the race? I don't think you can train for it, can you? It's just being an idiot, was the quote that he gave.
Oh, my God.
Oh, that does look painful, doesn't it? Clutching her prize. Sean, thank you very much for that. Let's find out what the weather's doing, shall we? Laura is in Wiltshire this morning. Good morning, Laura. Is it the weather for cheese rolling today? It's looking lovely and sunny again where you are.
I literally don't even know what type of weather you need for cheese rolling. And I also feel that the whole planning team is thinking that's got my name on it. It doesn't. I love cheese, I'm not going to run or roll down a hill to get some cheese, so no. Weather-wise, I'm at a beautiful location this morning. I'm at Beauwood House Woodland Gardens, and they're famed for their azaleas, magnolias and rhododendrons, and it's the rhododendrons I have come to see this morning, a kaleidoscope of colours. They have the light purples, the dark purples, the whites, the light pinks as well, and this is a family love and tradition that dates back many generations. The family here travelled to the Himalayas, cultivating these beautiful breeds, and actually it's thought within the 30 acres of gardens here, there are 30 hybrid varieties which are extinct elsewhere in the world. So they are absolutely beautiful. But the weather has actually meant that they've come out much later this year. They actually are around about 2 weeks later than they would normally be because of the very cool start to spring. So right now they're in beautiful full bloom, and the gardens here, these specific ones, only open to see these, and they're open until the 11th of June. Weather-wise, the sun's shining down on them today, but it's turning increasingly cloudy. Here's the all-important details.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed, proud sponsors of weather on Good Morning Britain.
Well, yesterday we had the warmest day of the year so far, and we could well yet again get that today with 25 degrees Celsius. Here's the reason why. It is high pressure. It's been keeping weather fronts at bay. It's been keeping us settled and fine. The wind direction is critical to where we get cloud and where we have our coolest and warmest temperatures. Now, for today, with clear skies overnight, the cloud acts like a blanket. You take it away, the heat escapes, and temperatures have fallen again close to freezing, so a chilly start. But it won't be long for the temperatures to dial up. But as we head through the day, the winds feed in from the east. And yet again, that means North Sea coast are cool, temperatures peck back to the mid to high teens, feeding in a little more cloud as we head through the day, holding back those temperatures. And it means west is best with the temperatures and the sunshine today. And the northwest of Scotland could get up to 25 degrees Celsius. But it is worth bearing in mind UV levels are still high across the country, even very high across the southwest. And at the moment it's been delayed, but grass pollen is finally in full swing, and it's up to moderate or high for many. For the weather where you are in detail, go to itv.com/weather.